The sequence we're working on this week is the week of consolidation sequence. And then next week, we get a whole bunch of new poses to work on, following through the sequences in light and yoga. And Mr. Iyengar says you repeat the standing pose sequences as long as you need to. But I do think we're getting good at them, and I feel that we can continue on. But it is interesting to think about the poses we've been doing since the beginning of the year and which ones are particularly difficult, right, of the standing poses that we've been working on. And for me, the ones that come to mind as being particularly difficult are the Parivrita standing poses, particularly Parivrita Parjvakonasana. I think on the Austin Yoga Instagram page, Vicky called it her nemesis pose. So those are the poses that I have the particular focus on this particular week because it's one of the hardest. So we're going to take several different approaches at it, look at it and Parivrita Trikonasana, look at some related poses as a way of making those poses better. And that's the general plan for today. Okay, so go ahead and sit in Swastikasana. Go ahead and pull your feet back, turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling, turn your calf flesh up toward the ceiling, and externally rotate your thighs, moving from the top of your thigh down to the bottom. Getting the groins open will certainly help with all of the revolved twisting poses. Right. Then press the tops of the feet down into the floor and energetically lift your ankles up, and you should feel some firmness come into the outer hips. Then from that firmness in the outer hips, lift up through the whole side body. Keep the side body long and roll the shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body and up a little bit so you really feel your chest nice and lifted. And then close your eyes and fold your palms together to your heart. Use your thumbs to lift your sternum up and feel how that releases the trapezius away from the neck. Use your forearms and lift your rib cage up, and you'll feel more release from the trapezius muscles. And I like to imagine that as the trapezius muscles go down, it's almost like putting your head under the covers or something on a rainy morning like today. It makes the awareness draw from the outer world toward the inner world, the inner landscape of you, the domain of yoga. Use your exhalations to take your awareness there. From that still place within, let's chant 3 M's together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keeping your chest well lifted and broad, bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Ashwini and Shane, I don't see you on the video, but I'm assuming that's because you don't want to be seen, which is totally fine. Just it's welcome to see your lovely space here in the Zoom room, as well as along with everyone else in the Zoom room. So it's nice to be here. All right, so press the feet down again and lengthen up through the side ribs and stretch your arms out in front of you. Another pose that's hard in the sequence for me is Karnapidasana, and it has a that's when you're in shoulder stand and you bring, it means ear pressure pose. That's the one where you bring your knees down toward your ears when you're in shoulder stand. And it has a version where your arms are back behind your back. And to practice that, stretch your arms out and then turn your palms like you normally would for Urdhva Baddha Gulyasana, which is down finger pose. Yeah. All right, and did you notice when you did that your elbows bent? Yeah. Okay, so try and do it this time, keeping your arms straight. Okay? So don't bend the elbows at all. Okay? And then it really focuses that way on the wrists and the tightness and the fingers in a different way. It's hard to do, you really have, but it's much more like what happens when you're on your shoulders and you try and turn the thumbs down like this for Karnapidasana and also shoulder stand too. All right, then switch the grip the opposite way. Stretch your arms out And then just notice when you do what you normally do. Okay. Hello, Naya, the Dragon Princess. It is good to see you and your mother in class. And then straighten your arms. And then can you turn your thumbs downward? But what I find when I do that, it also really makes the pressure, oh, I need to turn on the spotlight, sorry. It makes the, let's say, opening in the hand go more to the thumb and the first finger where I actually have a lot of tightness. Okay, so release your fingers and then we'll bring the arms above your head. All right, so stretch your arms out, try and keep your elbows straight and turn your thumbs down toward the floor. Then reach your arms all the way up into Urdhva Baddha. Press the feet down and energetically lift the ankles up. Continue that lift all the way up through the side ribs. Suck the elbows in and stretch up through your fingers. Really make yourself tall. And keep your chest well lifted and bring your chin down to your chest. Reach up with your arms. Can you move them back anymore? And then lift your head all the way up. Notice which finger you've got on top. My left finger is the one that's on the top interlace. And then swing your arms down to the left hand and on your left thigh and put them on the blanket behind you. Then lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. And as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself around to the left. Lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate. Rotate yourself by pushing against your leg with your hand and pulling on the blanket with your hand behind you. And feel how that begins the opening of the twisting. Lengthen up. And then exhale, turn and rotate again. Then turn your head to look a little bit more behind you. Push down with both hands and come all the way back to the center. Stretch your arms out again. Switch the fingers the opposite way. Try and interlace your pull your thumbs down toward the screen without straightening, with keeping the elbows straight. And then stretch your arms all the way up above the head. The different approach to Urdhva Baddha. Upward bound finger pose. Press the feet down and energetically lift the ankles up. Continue that lift all the way up through that thumb and that first finger that feels really tight or may feel really tight. And then lift your chest well. Bring your chin down toward your chest for Jalandhara Bandha. Move your arms back. Lift the arms up. Move them back again. And then raise your head and swing yourself around and do a twist to the other side. Press the feet down and energetically lift the ankles up and feel that lift coming all the way up from the tailbone through the head. And as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself around to the right. And then the lower back moves, the middle back moves, the upper shoulder blades and the chest moves, and then turn your head. Do that 2 more times, lengthening up from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate from the bottom of the spine, the middle of the spine, the top of the shoulder blades, and then turn your head. And 1 more, really push with your hands to get even more rotation on your leg. Push with your hands on your leg to rotate the spine around. And then come all the way back to the center. Go ahead and stretch your legs out into Dandasana. While you're stretching your legs out into Dandasana, I will spotlight myself so you can see the difference in the poses. I like to see you, so sometimes I forget to spotlight myself, but here I am, spotlight for everyone. And then I hide the spotlight from myself and I'm back on full screen and it's just like you're here with me. All right. I mean, not just like, but just like enough to have gotten us through this far in the pandemic. All right, bring the opposite leg in first and just Swastikasana again. Turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling. Move your calf flesh up toward the ceiling and turn your thighs from the inside out. And when you do that, you should feel the sitting bones draw in a little bit and you should feel an additional lift come all the way into the chest. Okay. Stretch your arms out again. This time just hook 1 thumb over the other thumb for bound thumb pose. Pull your thumbs against each other and stretch through your ring fingers. You can pull your thumbs against each other so much that it helps you get those elbows straighter. And then reach your arms above your head. Pull the thumbs against each other, stretch up through the fingers, really feel that lengthening in the side ribs, make yourself tall. Notice which thumb grip you've got on top. My left thumb is on top. And then swing yourself around to the first side again. Maybe first time around, maybe you had your hand near closer to the knee. Second time around, see what happens when you bring your hand more to your thigh, okay, middle of the thigh. And also turn the palm up as you read. And when you turn the palm up, slide that hand a little bit more down around the thigh, preparing yourself eventually for reaching down for Parshva Konasana. Parivrtta Trikonasana. Lengthen up through the side ribs in the middle of the spine and exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. Push that back of the hand against the thigh to help yourself rotate. Lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. One more time, inhale, lengthen up from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate. And then push down with both hands as you come back to the center. And then switch the grip of your thumbs. Pull the thumbs against each other and stretch through your ring fingers. Connect that pull of the thumbs with the reach of the fingers and reach your arms all the way up above your head. And go back to the base and press your feet down and lift the ankles up. Continue lifting up through the side ribs, the armpits, the ring fingers. Really lift yourself up. Then exhale, pull yourself around to the other side. So when I just don't think about where I put my hand, it ends up pretty near the knee usually, okay? But I want to get a little bit deeper twist. So I'm going to move the hand up the thigh. And you can feel that for me, that gets more of the middle rib cage when I move the hand up the thigh. But then also I'm going to turn the palm over and push with the back of my palm so I can get that shoulder to go back more and then turn and rotate. And I get a little deeper twist, a little bit more compact, a little bit more movement, let's say toward the middle of the spine. And you could play with wherever you put your hand position and it changes the angle of the twist. Okay, and then stretch your legs out into Dandasana again. Join your big toes together and spread your other toes wide apart. And as you do those actions, you should feel some firmness coming into the legs. Lengthen up through the side ribs, roll the shoulders back, and press your palms down on the floor of the blanket beside you. Even if the heel of the hand doesn't touch, extend from the armpit, through the elbow, through the heel of the hand, downward toward the floor, and feel that nice opening coming all the way up into the chest. Right. Then go ahead and bend your knees and stand up. Get a couple of blocks if you need them for Trikonasana and Parivrtta Trikonasana. Trikonasana is triangle pose. Parivrtta Trikonasana is revolved triangle pose. Some of you are new to me, and I am reminded that not everyone knows all of the Sanskrit. And part of the Iyengar tradition is you're supposed to say the pose in Sanskrit. So you do learn a little bit of the Sanskrit tradition of yoga, and along with learning your asana, but then you're supposed to say the pose in English. And I have to say, I often forget to say the pose in English. And I have to sometimes remind myself that not everyone has hooked into knowing what the pose is. For instance, Tadasana means mountain pose. Okay, so knowing that Tadasana means mountain pose, you might think about a mountain, okay, and think about the qualities that a mountain has that you might want to bring into your pose. Right? So a stability, a kind of rootedness with the earth. Mountains also ascend upward toward the sky, right? They withstand all kinds of fluctuations of weather, right? For instance, the rain or the sun coming out. And so one of the things we're doing in our yoga practice is cultivating that kind of resiliency within ourselves to the flux of circumstance in life. Okay. All right, then bring your hands to your heart and step or jump your feet out wide. I've been practicing jumping again lately. My Baylor students really like more of the movement of yoga because they're young, it makes sense. They like to move. And so anyway, I said, it does feel kind of nice to jump sometimes. So jump if it's appropriate. Stretch your arms up and spread your toes. All right, lift your right toes up and left toes up, and turn the leg in. And then turn and spin on the front leg as well. Trikonasana is an easy one to understand. That means triangle pose, just like it sounds, a 3-angle pose. Okay, so your feet and the top of the head are like the triangle. All right, press into your back heel, reach over and bring your hand down to your shin and your other hand up toward the ceiling. Extend from the tailbone through the head. Now to get a little bit more turn, because that's what we're really working on in class today, bring your top hand down to your hip. It'll be your left hand. And pull that elbow back behind you. And roll your bottom shoulder backward toward the wall behind you also. And feel how that turns your torso, just like we were doing in that seated pose. Lengthen from the tailbone through the head. And one more time, rotate your bottom shoulder more open and pull the elbow back so the whole torso gets a little bit more open. Then add your arm and press into your back heel and come all the way up. Turn your feet back to the center. and then bring your hands together and step or jump your feet in. So the bottom arm, what I'm really talking about is it tends to roll forward. So when we're in triangle pose with the hand that's on the shin, you want to roll the shoulder back. And really both arms do that. So that's what I was talking about here, okay? The top arm, place your hands on your hips and pull your elbows back. And as you do that, can you feel your collarbones get broader, right? So we're gonna pull the elbow back so the collarbones gets broad. Then put your hands at your side and turn your whole arm so the palms go more toward the ceiling. Sorry, not toward the ceiling, more toward the screen in front of you. And feel how that opens the collarbones even more. Okay. Now with your nice open chest, bring your thumbs up to your chest and then step or jump yourself out wide. Okay. Spread your toes, lift, lift your quadriceps and your inner thighs. Then turn your back leg in, that's your right leg. Turn your front leg all the way out. And you'll feel the torso wants to go with the turn of the leg. So we have to keep the leg externally rotating like we were in the seated pose, but move the torso back toward, so you're facing toward the screen. All right, and then press into your back heel, reach out, keep turning toward the screen and bring your bottom hand down to your shin and your top hand on your hip. And then turn, okay, and then to get the turn of the torso, bend your bottom arm a little bit so you can really turn it and feel how that turns and opens the chest. Then add the pull of the top arm and you get the chest to turn even more. Lengthen from the tailbone through the head, bend the elbow and turn, pull the elbow down and turn the torso more, then reach your hand all the way up, turn and look with your head, and then come all the way back up, turn your feet back to the center, bring your hands in and step or jump yourself back together. And again, feel the vitality that comes from the jump, a little extra energy of the jumping. I can feel just this tiny little more lift and energy that comes into the chest when I do that. All right, Parivrita Trikonasana, which means a revolved triangle pose. Okay, so step or jump your feet out wide like you were doing for Trikonasana. Now to revolve Trikonasana, actually go ahead and put your hands on your hips for a second. The revolution really starts with the back leg turning toward the front leg. Okay, so turn your left leg toward your right leg. The torso turns and you do turn your right leg faces forward. So here's the revolution. Then stretch your arms out, turn even more, and then swing your left arm down to the outside of your right little toe. And then put your hand on your hip again. Extend from the tailbone through the head. Exhale, turn and rotate your torso. Can you pull your elbow down a little bit more, turn more, then add your arm, swing yourself all the way back up. Place your hands on your hips and turn your feet back to the center. Okay. Revolve triangle pose. Start the revolution from that back hip. Turn your front leg along as well. The back hip turns, the rib cage turns, the collarbones turn, stretch your arms out, turn your arms, and then swing your arm down, hopefully to the little toe side of your foot. Place your hand on your hip to lengthen the toe and then turn, extend through the spine and then turn more by pulling that elbow down. One more time, lengthen from the tailbone through the head, turn, add the arm, swing yourself back around, bring your hands into the center, and step or jump your feet back together. All right, good job, everyone. All right, so go ahead and come back down onto the floor, have a blanket to sit on. Okay.
Hey, Anne,
Yeah.
could you let me know when something's contraindicated for during menstruation?
Sure, we'll be happy to. That one is that one's kind of on the border because it's if you're really tight in it, it might be too much across the lower abdomen. But I when it was an issue for me, I felt like sometimes I could still do it as long as I kept the twist in the rib cage and didn't go down as far. Okay. And also jumping contraindicated for menstruation. Okay. Many things are actually contraindicated for jumping while I'm on it, not just menstruation. Like if you have issues with your ankles or knees or hips and the jarring sensation of the jump or low back issues, any of those kinds of things that you're dealing with, it's actually recommended to step rather than the jump so you don't get the extra kind of shock. But some of those things sometimes apply to me, and that's why I got in the habit of kind of not jumping. And then as a result, I was kind of depriving myself of the energy that comes from jumping. And so you might try it sometimes. Okay, so here we are in Dandasana again. All right, the poses, here's a lovely pose, Upavishtakonasana. Bring your legs out wide. This is this pose, comparing it to Trikonasana and Parivrita Trikonasana, has probably been one of my favorite pandemic linkage discoveries because it's really like Trikonasana and Parivrita Trikonasana done at the same time. It's really exciting. So we just did Trikonasana, right? So this would be like the front leg of Trikonasana triangle pose that we just did, right? So when I turn and I staying upright, and this is fine because it's an open twist and you're not compressing, okay? Then this leg here is like the triangle pose leg that we just did. You can even lean over and bring your hand to your shin, okay? Keep your elbow on your hip and pull your elbow back and see how that turns the torso more away from that front leg. And then just add your other arm so it's an extension of your bottom arm. And really you're doing, from the perspective of this side, you're really doing a triangle pose, right? So when you slide back up and turn, this is triangle pose. But now think about it from the perspective of the other leg. Okay? So when you're turning toward the left leg for y'all, that's really like Parivrita Trikonasana, where we went to the little toe side of the foot. So this upright part, totally nice and open, but if you were to reach your arm down, you can feel that the twist gets a little bit more, let's say, deep or compact. And that can be too much pressure sometimes when you're on your cycle, right? So that's why the closed twisting is not recommended, but open twisting is great. All right, so you can lean a little forward if those conditions don't apply to you and turn a little bit more. So you've got Parivrita Trikonasana going toward the front leg, combined with Trikonasana, all in the same pose. Isn't that wonderful? And then come all the way back to the center. Spread through your toes, dropping the little toe side of the foot up into the outer hips. Right. You can add the arm work here too before we do the second side. So interlace your fingers, keep your elbows as straight as you can, and turn your thumbs down toward the floor. See, I forgot to say, Upavishtakonasana means seated wide angle pose. You're seated and your legs are wide apart at an angle. And then stretch your arms up, extend from the elbows to the wrist bones, feel that nice opening in the side ribs and the armpits. And then bring your hands down, switch the grip of your thumbs, stretch your arms out, try to do that turning a couple of times. Can you practice it without bending the elbows? So you just get a little bit more pliability in that thumb and that first finger. All right, and then reach your arms all the way up. Spread across the toes, draw up from the little toe into the outer hip. Kathy, try and bring your toes a little bit more straight up toward the ceiling rather than pulling it, but the toes themselves, can you spread? Yes, there you go, that's perfect. All right, and then stretch your arms all the way up. All right, then swing around and do the other side. Okay, so there are lots of versions of this turning Upavishtakonasana. You can stay just upright where you really got the spine nicely aligned, right? That's perfectly a fine way of doing it. When we want to emphasize the Trikonasana part, go ahead and lean over and put your hand on your shin. Turn and rotate the torso more. You can have your hand on your hand on your hip and pull with the elbow as well. Then just reinforce that link of triangle pose by reaching your arm on the same angle as the bottom arm, and then reinforce more and turn the head. Right? So now you've got the triangle turning, then come back upright again and see how you can turn even more. Then reach your other hand on the outside of the leg, and to whatever way is appropriate for you, you can reach down. I can't quite get my toes, but I can reach down close to my toes, and then turn your palm, turn and rotate, and then you can try and add your top arm. Mine doesn't go very far in this angle, but then slide yourself back upright and see how you can turn more from having bent more. All right, and then come all the way back to the center. Swing your legs together. Be in Dandasana again. Join your big toes. Spread your other toes out wide, and then draw up from the little toe side of the foot into the outer hips. All right, there's also, we can do the same kind of playful looking at Trikonasana, Parivrita Trikonasana in supine poses too. Supta Padangusthasana 2 and Parivrita Supta Padangusthasana. So Supta Padangusthasana 2 is perfectly fine. Oh, it's but Darlene, when we go over to the side, I would say what might be better to do is just bend your knees and let your legs go over to the side. So you'll get some of the lower back twists, but it won't be as intense in the abdominal region. Okay, but Supta Padangusthasana 2 is a fantastic pose for you at this time. All right, so everyone start off in Supta Tadasana, which means that you're laying down. Supta means supine. Excellent Sanskrit word to know, because generally it means you get to lie down on the floor while you're doing your yoga. What could be better than that? And Tadasana, we already learned, so it's a supine mountain pose. I mean, mountains to an extent are lying down because they're in connection with the floor, with the ground. All right, have a brick handy to put by your right hip so it supports your outer right hip. Then you're gonna bend up your right knee, put the strap on your foot, bring it up, and Darlene, you can bend your knee and go out to the side. So Supta Padangusthasana 2 already. But normally when we got to Supta 2, we're actually going to do it that other entry because it's kind of interesting to look at in a second. We normally come into Supta Padangusthasana 1. Padangusthasana means hand on big toes. Padas are feet, angushtas are big toes, and eventually you reach up and get your big toe. There's several stages of it. This is stage 1. When you bring your leg out to stage 2, okay, it's called Supta Padangusthasana 2 because it's the second stage. And I've got this brick under my outer hip here. So it sucks my outer femur bone in for me. Then stretch your right arm out. You're holding onto the strap. And then feel the broadness that comes across the pelvic region. Now we can increase that broadness across the pelvic region by moving the left leg over more toward the left side of the mat. So we've increased the space across the pelvic region to make it more like triangle pose. And then turn your left leg in a little bit and you'll feel that groin release even more. Okay, then bring your leg back to the center. Come all the way back to Supta Padangusthasana 1 and lower the leg. And we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. Then we're gonna try a couple of different entries. Okay, so typically when we do this pose, lately we've been working with pulling the leg up straight, which wouldn't be good for menstruation because you're using your abdomen too much. So you can bend the leg, pull the leg in, and straighten the leg. But if you're not on your cycle, you can practice the down the leg. Okay, so the legs are straight, and I go out to the side. Okay. We're already basically like triangle pose. Feel the broadness across the pelvic region. And there is a little bit of a turn, just like Trikonasana, that the abdomen actually turns from the left pelvic bone to the right. Now feel how much broader you get when you move your right leg out to the right. And when you turn the right leg in a little bit, you get a little bit more descent in the front groin of the bottom leg. Then swing the leg back, swing the leg up, and lower the leg down or bend it. But there's another nice entry to doing Supta Padangusthasana 2, where you bend the right leg up. Let's do that. Put the strap on the ball of the foot. Okay? And then keeping the leg bent, move the leg out to the side, kind of like you're doing a lying down tree pose. And will then stretch your legs out. And it's a very soft entry to the pose. Rather than kind of the rigidity that comes from leg straight, moving a heavy leg out. And you can go back and forth a couple times to feel the difference if you want. It feels nice to bend the leg, move the leg out to the side, then to straighten the leg. Okay. It's a lot, for me, it gives me a release and a depth in the groin. And so that's a nice approach to work on. Here we are in Supta Padangusthasana 2 again. All right, then bring the leg all the way up, or you can do the bent leg entry, switch hands, stretch the arm out, and then you're going to roll over to the little toe side of your left foot. And you can probably feel that there is some compression that comes in the lower abdomen, which you still want the lower back twist, which would be nice when you're on your cycle. But if you just bend your knees and move the legs over to the side, you get the lower back twist, but there isn't the same compression in the abdomen. So, and y'all could, even if you, even if you're not kind of interested in modifications, it's neat to kind of feel. Okay? There's an intensity with the legs straight, that when you bend the legs and move the leg over, you still get the twist, but it's softer. So sometimes it might be, or for instance, like let's say you have lower back pain, that might be something that you wanted to think about. All right, so let's go back to Supta Parivrita Supta Padangusthasana. You're over on the little toe side of the foot. Okay. Bend your elbows. Parivrita just means revolve. Supta means supine. Padangushtha means big toe. Elbow down, turn and rotate yourself around, and then stretch both of your arms out. Now, to make this be more like revolved triangle pose, the standing pose, you can move your bottom left leg over to the right and straighten it out. And when you do that, I get a lot more twist in the lower back, a nice additional opening in the middle back twist, and then I can turn my head to look toward the street. Oh, feels good. And swing your leg back, swing your leg up, and lower over to the other side. Okay. All right, so let's try the bent leg entry in Supta Padangusthasana 2 a couple of times on the second side. Okay. And then we'll go over into Parivrita. Okay. All right, so we can do what we've been practicing lately, if it's appropriate, which is to try and lift the leg up straight. Okay. And it's just like the abdominal work of forward extended foot pose. Then you have to also, when you work straight, you have to lift your abdomen up again to get the foot. Okay, so all of that's too much when you're on your cycle. So what is it like when you bend the knee, get the foot, and then lower the leg out to the side, and then straighten the leg out? But you know what? I actually think it feels great on the groin doing it that way. So even though I've been emphasizing straight leg lifting a lot, it's nice to think about other approaches. All right, now go over to revolved. Okay. You're gonna lift the leg up, move over to the side, or just bend your legs and move the legs over to the side, whichever one you want to experience, or you can try and do both. Okay. I'm on the little toe side of my bottom leg, because I rolled over that much. Now move your right leg over to the left, and you can pull your left leg a little bit closer to your hand, and then turn and rotate your torso just a little bit more. Oh, that feels good. Come back to the center, lower your leg down, and then just be in Supta Tadasana again. Then bend your knees or roll up. Come onto your hands and your knees. Spread your palms well. Turn your biceps toward the front of the room. Turn your toes under and push back into downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. And so we've done a fair bit of twisting already today, and feel how that twisting and the work of releasing the groin affects your first downward facing dog with class. For me, it feels pretty long. There's already a kind of extension coming into the spine from the release of the twists. Then come up onto the balls of the feet so your quadriceps and your inner thighs lift, and then roll back over the ball of the feet and stretch your heels down toward the floor. Then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Have your hands right underneath your shoulders. Turn your biceps toward the front of your mat. Place your hands on your hips. Roll your shoulder bones back and come all the way up. All right. Then stand into Tadasana again, stand in mountain pose. Again. And join your hands together at your heart this time. Extend from the elbows through the wrist bones. Push the heel of the hand together and extend upward through your fingers. And then lift your sternum up into your thumbs. Okay. This is called Namaste, the pose where you stand and put your hands in prayer position. There is also a pose called Urdhva Namaste, where in Namaste you go up. Urdhva means up. Okay? So reach your arms all the way up above your head. trying to keep the elbows as straight as you can. You may feel that the heel of the hand gets a little bit light. So see if you can extend even more from the elbows through the wrist bones, and then try and move your arms back behind your ears. So this is the arm position for tree pose, for warrior one, and for warrior three. There's also a Paschima Namaskarasana behind the back pose. So internally rotate your arms this time, move your arms back behind you, bring your hands up your back in prayer position as much as you can. You might not be able to get them super far up, because maybe it will stay way down here. You might even just have to hold your wrists or hold your elbows depending on your wrist flexibility. But if you can manage it, get your hands back behind you. So it's Namaskarasana, prayer pose with your hands behind you. Now, ideally, the heel of your hand touches here too. But even if it doesn't, lengthen up through your armpits, roll your shoulder bones back, and then from the elbows, can you at least stretch your wrists toward each other, or the heel of your hand toward each other? So even if they don't touch, there's still the intention of getting the heel of the hand to touch. All right, then release your hand and then come back into a mountain pose, Tadasana. And let's do that again. Now, when you bring your arms back behind you, I have this habit of always bringing my right arm in first because it's a little stiffer and it's been injured a few times. But this time around, I'm gonna try and tell myself, I'm gonna try and bring my left arm in first and then bring my right arm in. So just notice which one you habitually do and see if you can do it the other way. Good. So bring the hands together again at your heart. Press the thumbs into the sternum, but the sternum lifts up into the thumbs. From your elbows, extend and get the heel of the hand together. It's pretty easy to do here, right? So knowing it's going to be harder when you reach your arms above your head, before you even reach your arms up, press from the elbows through the wrist bones so the heel of the hand gets even more pressed together. And then maintain that as you reach your arms all the way up above your head. Now they may come apart a little bit, so you just have to keep extending from the armpit through the elbow to get that heel of the hand to go together. All right, then be as tall as you can, and internally rotate the arms, work your arms way, way, way back behind you, bend the elbows, and I'm gonna say left arm, you're gonna go in first this time. And then the left hand can still help the right hand get in a little bit. And once you're back here, meaning that your hands are behind your back, now you actually have to open the arms the other way. So you do internally rotate the arm to get behind the back. But once the arm is behind the back, you have to say, thank you for internal rotation, shoulders. But now what I'm going to do is roll the shoulders back, really open that upper arm, and then extend from the elbows through the wrist bones, trying to get the heel of the hand just to go a little bit more around your back, closer to your back. And even if it doesn't go, the energy of trying to get there is what's important. Okay. All right, and then release your hands down to your sides again, and reach your arms up just into plain old Urdhva Hastasana, upward hand pose, and see the freedom that comes from having done that shoulder, wrist, and arm work in terms of the ability just to lift your arms all the way up. And then bring your arms all the way down. Okay. The other kind of set of poses that is newish these last couple of weeks are this week is the standing forward bend work. Darlene, you can stay in the concave backstage, and you also for all of these, or if it feels okay, you can pull forward. All right. Okay. All right. So the first one is called Pada Krishnasana, which means hand on big toe pose. Okay. Padas are feet. It actually just means foot big toe pose. That's what it really means. Okay. What does foot big toe pose mean? It means that you have to grab your big toes with your fingers. I'm going to explain this again. I think one of you asked about it last week. There is in yoga, in Iyengar yoga, there is a special big toe approved getting grip. What you do, okay, is here's your big toe. Okay, right. The fingers go on the inside of the big toe, 2 fingers hook, and then you hook your thumb over the 2 fingernails. You should be able to see that really well because I got a manicure. Okay, so here are my 2 red fingernails going around my big toe, and then you hook the thumb over the two fingernails, right? And you're gonna do that with both legs, okay? So have your feet hip width apart. Place your hands on your hips at first. Lift your quadriceps, inner thighs, do everything that you know how to do with the legs. Okay? And I just will conglomerate that into do your leg actions, whatever that means to you, okay? Then pull your elbows back. That opens the collarbones and brings the shoulder blades onto the back. And then you're gonna fold forward. And if you can reach the floor with your fingers, great. If you can't reach the floor with your fingers, you can raise the floor with a brick. Now, if you can't get your big toes with your legs straight, I will give you special permission to bend your knees. And when you bend your knees, you see how the big toe gets closer. So now you can hook the big toes while you're standing. If you can keep your legs straight, do. But if you need to bend the knees, it's okay. You could also put a strap around your big toes, but I want you to work on the grip because it's good for the hands. Okay, now turn your biceps toward the front of the mat, just like you're doing downward facing dog. Then push your big toe, push at that space between your big toe and your second toe, and feel how that extends the sides of the torso forward. Now, push down on your big toes and your fingers with your big toes, but pull up on your big toes with your fingers, and you'll feel more lengthening coming into the spine, and then fold forward and let your torso release down toward the floor. Or, you know what you could do, darling? You could do this seated, and you could even put a blanket roll between your thighs and your abdomen, and that would feel very good. Okay? In fact, we're all going to do that in a second. This is called Padangusthasana. Come back to the center, extend the spine up, place your hands on your hips, and come all the way up. Okay. So that can be a lot on the lower back. Go ahead and sit down. And everyone should know this, but not meaning like if you don't know it, there's a way of working in forward bends where you take a blanket roll and you pull it up against your pelvic bone and you pull the blanket roll back and you fold forward. And it broadens the lower back, which is nice for everyone. It's soothing on the abdominal region, okay? But it's also really good for people who want to do forward bending. And you know how sometimes when you're in a really forward bend or you've been in the car a long time and you try and stand up and you feel like a little catch in the front of your hip. Okay, so this is also good for people's hips. Okay? So when you fold forward with this blanket roll, it's a really nice thing to do. You don't always have to do it in forward bending, but it's very soothing on the back. And then see if you can grab your big toes while you're sitting. And two fingers around the big toes and then your thumb over your two fingernails. Now, the first thing you have to do is push down in that space between the big toes with your middle finger. When you push down and turn the biceps, you feel how that gets you longer in the spine as you're going forward. Now, push your big toes into your fingers and you feel how that pulls the spine a little bit longer. Then pull against your big toes with your fingers, and that'll help you lift the chest even more. Yes, and if your big toes are not available, you either use the strap around the big toes or you can work with your knees bent, okay? And then come all the way up. So that's a lot of activity for your hands. It's forward bending too. Now the next one is called Padahastasana. So padas we already know are feet. Hastas we may already know are hands. So if you can't reach your hand underneath your foot, go ahead and bend your leg up. So bend one leg up and put your hand all the way up underneath your foot. Now, it's one thing just to hold the foot in the hand, but can you spread your hand like you're doing downward facing dog, also spread your toes and then put the hand all the way underneath the foot, but spreading the toes and spreading the hands. And then release. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. If you can reach forward, you can do that. But I was actually getting quite a nice release in my groin when I bent the leg up here and put my hand out, which is going to relate to what we're going to do next. So that's called Pada. It stops moving. All right. Now, when you do the third standing forward bend, that's also in this sequence, it's called Uttanasana. And then you would bring your legs together, okay? And then you just reach your hands back behind your feet. Okay. All right. So we're going to do those again, standing up, but if it's more appropriate for you to stay seated, you stay seated. Okay. So stand up again and bring your feet hip width apart. We're going to go for the Pada Hastasana, right? So lift your right foot up, spread your right hand, and spread your toes, and then stand on your right hand. It feels quite nice, at least to me. And push that big toe into the thumb base joint as you keep spreading your thumb and your little finger away from you. That's the right hand. Then lift your left, then take that out of the way for a second. Lift your left hand up, lift your left toes up, spread your hand, and put the hand on the foot. Pada Hastasana, foot hand pose. Now, ideally, then do it with both hands. We can stay in the concave stage, or there's also the bending forward stage. Push the foot into the hands, but also pull up into the foot with the hands. So both the padas and the hastas are helping the spine descend down. Then go ahead and come out of the pose, release your hands, place your hands on the floor, and then push back into downward facing dog. And it should feel really nice on your nicely spread hands to be doing another downward facing dog. Then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones, roll your shoulder bones back, and come all the way up. Good. All right, then the other revolve poses again are Parajvakonasana, which means side angle pose when you bend your leg, and Parivrita Parajvakonasana. So we're going to work on some seated preparations for those poses. So come back into Upavishtakonasana, seated wide angle pose. You can have a little bit of support to sit on as you need to. So here the legs are out wide. Then, and keeping the same angle, bend up your right leg. So it comes to a 90-degree angle, and spread your toes. So here the leg is in basically like it's the same thing if you would do it standing, that you're going to reach down and get the little toe side of your foot with your fingers, spread your toes, pull on the little toe side of the foot and roll that upper arm open and turn your torso away from your bent leg. Place your other hand at first on your hip and pull the elbow back behind you to turn. Then reach your hand way, the left hand above your head, stretching through your ring fingers, extend through that left leg, but pull with your torso away from the leg. So you get lots of nice extension in the spine. All right, and then release and come down and stretch your legs out again into Upavishtakonasana. Bend your leg up. So it's just at this 90-degree angle. It's also kind of a preparation for Karmasana, which is tortoise pose. Then you want to lengthen through this side body. Okay, so as you're reaching your hand toward your big toe, if you can't get it, it's okay. You can try pulling it in a little bit more. You can also use a strap around the foot. Okay, so here I've got the little toe side of my foot, and then I have to pull on that little toe side of my foot and turn the arm, and that helps my torso begin to turn. Now push with your knee against your arm and you'll turn more. Pull your elbow back behind you and turn more. Then staying turned, stretch your arm all the way up. Keep extending through your right leg, extend through the right side of the body, all the way through the armpit, through the ring finger, and turn your head to look up toward the ceiling. I really like that version. And then stretch your legs all the way back out into Upavishtakonasana again. While we're here, there's the next stage of Upavishtakonasana is actually to fold all the way forward on the floor. And you can practice getting your big toes here too. Or if the big toes are not readily available to you, you can hook the big toes with 2 straps or 1 big wide strap. Or you can just say, fine, big toes are not available, but my shin is available. So I'm just gonna lean a little bit forward and get my shins. Now you can also try, it's a little bit further away, but can you get the little toe side of your foot here? Pull on the little toe side of the foot and roll those shoulders back to really feel the opening in the chest. And then come all the way back up, swing your legs together, and here you are in Dandasana. So Darlene, you could either do Marichiasana 1 as an open twist while we do Marichiasana 3, or you could even just stay in Parshva Dandasana. So I'll leave that up to you. Or, you know, you also could do, you could do this one again and stretch your arm out. So up to you, any of those that you want to do. The rest of us are going to try and do Marichiasana 3. So Marichiasana 3. Some Sanskrit poses are named after Indian sages who did interesting things. Marichi is one of those, and there are actually 4 poses, 4 Marichiasana twists. So sometimes they're difficult to translate. So this is just a version of a seated twist, you could say. All right, so bend your right leg up. And then hold on to your knee with your left hand. Keep your left leg straight and lean back behind you. Now, when you lean back behind you, let's see, will that work in Marichiasana 1? Yes, that would also work in Marichiasana 1. Okay, so you could lean back behind you. Okay, it feels good. All right, so when you lean back behind you, it kind of gives you the space to turn your abdomen from toward the torso, turn the ribs toward the torso, and then you come back upright. And this is your they're called closed twists because you're not closed because you're compressing the body in the twist, and you're making yourself compact. Okay? And then turn. When see my hand is here, then the next stage you can work on is to hook the elbow around the knee, and that helps bring the ribs around a little bit more. Then you can work on pulling the elbow around the knee and turning. You can straighten out the arm and turn more. And some people would be able to clasp around the knee. Now I can't do that, okay? But if you are someone who does that, you turn the arm like you were doing behind your back and swing the arm around the front of the leg, and then you try and bring the other arm back behind you. Not for my body type and current state of stiffness, but if you can do it, feel free. Go ahead and you can go ahead and clasp. Okay. But I do just want to point out that clasping action, when you wrap, starts in the work of bringing your hands around back behind you. Okay? So it's all this beautiful interwoven tapestry. All right, stretch your legs out of poses. Yeah. And you can just pull on a thread of any one of them and you'll see different ways that the poses connect with each other. Even here, when you lean back, yeah, this is just a link I was thinking about last week, the leaning back to make space. It's really like doing the first stage of Navasana where you lean back a little bit before you lift your legs up. So I'm leaning back to kind of get my abdomen drawn in a little bit out of the way before I even turn. And then I'm turning while I'm leaning back to really pull the abdomen around. And as much as possible, I want to stay turned as I come up. And the first stage, keep your hand just on your knee and just observe where that helps where the twist goes in your back when your hand's on your knee. The next stage you can work on is trying to hook the up elbow around the front of the knee. And that gives you more of a twist in the middle back and it gets a little tighter. Then you try and cross over with a bent arm first and turn. There's also a stage with straight arm where you actually can get the opposite shin. That one doesn't really work for me. Right. But then there's like you were doing behind the back Paschimma Namaskarasana, except you just have to wrap around your front arm leg. So if you can do that, do that. But if you can't, just know that it's there on the progression and the trajectory of the poses that one day we're working toward doing that and one day it'll come. or we just keep on working on the poses and we're still doing yoga. All right, and then release and come up. Back to seated. Let's go ahead and stand on our shins now. You might need some padding on your shins. Bend your right leg out to a 90-degree angle and push your hand against your knee. And oh, look, here's like a triangle pose twist with the leg in a bent Parsvakonasana angle. And go ahead and reach down just like you did in sitting toward the little toe side of the foot and turn. Then add your top arm just like you did in sitting. And here's a version of Parigasana. And then come up and pull your leg back in. And then stand on your shins again, like a mini mountain pose, right? With standing on your shins instead of your feet. But you have to get the weight back into the feet, so really keep extending through all 10 big toes. And engage your hamstrings and buttocks, and that'll help take some of the weight off of your knee. All right, then move the leg off to the other side. So you've got Parsvakonasana leg here. You can put your hand on your knee to turn the torso away from the leg, just like Parsvakonasana. Keep turning the torso away from the leg as you bring your hand down to the little toe side of your foot. Turn and rotate. And then you can add your top arm. So bent leg, Parigasana, gate latch pose. All right, then bring the shins back to the center. Oh, let's see, go ahead and finish that pose. Okay, so stretch your leg out. And first the toe is pointing a little bit straight ahead, but then you lift up on the heel, pull up on the little toe side of the foot, and then close the gate of the latch. The latch of the gate, no, yes, latch of the gate, not gate of the latch. And then turn your torso toward the front of the room. Slide yourself all the way up. Bring the leg back. Stretch the leg out straight first, kind of like Prasarita Padottanasana. Lift the foot, turn the foot, pull the little toe side of the foot up to the outer hip. As you reach and turn the torso toward the screen as much as you can, even as you close the gate of the latch. That looks really nice, everyone. Darlene, you can repeat that, or you can go back to a seated twist. We're going to take the gate latch approach to Paririta Parsvakonasana. What do I mean by that? I mean that rather than moving the leg out to the side, you're going to stay bent on your shin and bring your leg out in front of you. Same idea. I'm going to stay upright first and turn as much as I can toward it. My left leg's in front, but you can do it toward the right. I'm doing it where at the side I can do better. And remember how we turned that palm up way at the beginning of class? And I said, slide down a little bit more. Okay. You can do that here too. You can also use your hand to release the abdomen. And you want to try and get the whole shoulder blade actually on the outside of the knee. I can't quite do that, but that's where I'm going. Pull with your elbow on your hip. Now suck your outer hips in, straighten your leg, and then try and sneak yourself into full Paririta Parsvakonasana. I call that the stealth approach to Paririta Parsvakonasana. Or you can stay kneeling. Yeah, okay. All right, then come out. Then switch sides. So you're standing on your shins like gate latch pose. You bring the leg up in front of you. It's like warrior one. Suck your outer hips in. And turn and rotate in this upright position as much as you can first. Okay. Right, stay as turned as you can as you slide your arm down the outside of your thigh. And maybe you get to your elbow. And you can repeat that. You don't have to stay stuck where you get the first time. You can lift up a little bit. Can you get a little bit lower? Can you pull with your elbow and turn more and get a little bit lower? It's tricky balance-wise to get up from this place, but suck your outer hips in, suck your abdomen in, and straighten your back leg and turn and rotate and stretch your arm over your head. And swing out. That looks good, Vicky. Just straighten your back leg a little bit more and stretch through your heel. Yes. No nemesis for you. All right, and then release. Come out of the pose. Downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana.
This is a pose.
And does this downward facing dog have a different, you inhabit it differently, you might say. So I can feel after having done more of those deeper twists or the closed twists that my weight is now more back into my heels, that was a release that came in the lower back. And I can feel my abdomen drawing more in toward the spine from the work of the compression of the pose. All right, then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back and come all the way up. Okay, Darlene, we're gonna do headstand and then shoulder stand. So you could do, if you have a chair, you could do chair Dvipada from the chair instead of headstand, or if you don't, you could do like Supta Virasana while we're doing headstand, or Supta Baddha Konasana, whichever one of those you want to. And then when we do shoulder stand, you can do some kind of Setubandha and off of the bolster. All right, so the rest of you set up for whatever you do when headstand rolls around. If you aren't a headstand doer, again, a couple of you are new to me, so I don't know, okay, if you're doing headstand or not. Okay. You could do downward facing dog again, but what I told Darlene are some options, which could also be options for non-headstand doers, is that you could lay down either with the bolster or not, with your legs in Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. You could put your legs crossed, or you could even do, if you're up for it, a nice pose called Supta Virasana. Okay, so all three of those are good pregnancy substitutions, as is doing a chair one. But there are also things you can do to prepare the body and the groin one day to get upside down. So those are your options if you aren't a headstand doer. There are others, but those are just some you can consider. For instance, downward facing dog. You could fold down and do Uttanasana again. So there's a wide range of things that put you in the shoulder stand movement, okay, even if you're not actually standing on your head. There's also headless headstand prep, which Chaya is doing.
I changed it already.
Yeah, there you go. That looks pretty good, Darlene. Maybe the bolster might be a little bit too close, Darlene, to your buttocks, but if it feels comfortable, you're good. Okay. All right, so here we are in headstand. Next week, in terms of following this sequence of poses, Mr. Iyengar actually puts headstand in, and it's in week 14. Okay? So again, for me, big picture, all of these standing poses, all of these twists, all the work that we've done prepares you in a global sense to be doing headstand safely. Okay? And most of us do headstand already, and I didn't want to take a 3.5 month break from headstand just to follow Lat and yoga sequences. So, I'm taking some liberties with it, but I'm still learning a lot from following the progression. It looks like your elbows, Karen Higgins, are a little bit wide. That looks good, Leanne. Good gay. Good, nice leg action, Pratima. Prati, a little bit, it looks like you're falling on the right-hand side of your head.
I can see it looks really good.
Yeah, okay.
This is
That looks good, Karen Carpenter.
really fall on top of it.
All right, partners giving Gay and Cliff some help, always wanted. Okay, now to come down, if you can come down with bent legs together or straight legs together, do that, and it will reinforce the abdominal work that we've been doing. And it's a pose in its own right. And then you're gonna set up for shoulder stand. If you aren't doing shoulder stand for a variety of reasons, it could be that you're on your cycle. It could be that you don't know how to do shoulder stand yet. What you could do, if you're on your cycle, the nice one is with the bolster. You lay down on the bolster and put your head and your shoulders on the floor and then straighten your legs out. Or you could also put your legs, this might feel good, Darlene, after the Supta Virasana is to do Supta Baddha Konasana in Satyabandha. If you don't have any of the yoga props, you can just bend your knees, lift your buttocks up off the floor, get some nice opening on the front groin, and then swing around and put your legs up the wall, okay? So if you're not a shoulder stand doer, you bend your knees, lay on your back, lift your buttocks up, tuck your shoulders underneath you, and then you swing around and you come into laying on your back with your legs up the wall. If you are a shoulder stand person, who does shoulder stand, then go ahead and get yourself set up for some version of shoulder stand. Now,
Yes, the legs are up the wall. Okay.
Bob, a little bit your legs are listing kind of significantly over to the left. So come down into plow pose and see if you can straighten your shoulders out and then bring your legs all the way back up. We didn't really go over Karna Pidasana today much, but the sequence that Mr. Iyengar gives here is the Karna Pidasana, shoulder stand, Halasana, Karna Pidasana, back up to shoulder stand, and then the Ekapada. Next week, there are quite a few variations of Sarvangasana that he adds. So one thing I've been pondering, beginning to ponder this week, and with knowing that other things are coming up, is of the two shoulder stand variations, why is Karna Pidasana there? Why is Ekapada Sarvangasana there? So that Karna Pidasana action particularly, where you bend your knees and put your shins near you on the floor, is clearly something important that the back needs to learn how to do. Okay. That looks good, Karen Carpenter. Good. Vicky, that is a nice looking shoulder stand. That is really lots of great verticality. And the only thing, Vicky, just lift your buttocks up a little bit more and move your feet ever so slightly toward your head. The feet themselves are, yes, there you go. That's an incredible lift on the sides of the torso, really good. Okay. All right, good, Karen Higgins, but can you move your legs a little further back towards, so the more weight comes into the elbows? Same thing, Marcia, can you get a little bit more weight back into your elbows? All right, now this is just for people doing shoulder stand, but everyone who's doing shoulder stand, come into plow pose. Either with your feet on a chair or with your feet on the floor. Now, when you're in plow pose, it gives you the opportunity to tuck your shoulders underneath you more, right? But also now when you're in plow pose, watch what happens with the respect to your back body when you bend your knees down toward the floor. Doesn't it feel like it pulls the back body? Actually, it should be pulling the other way, Kathy. The back body should actually go toward the head more. Yeah, you're kind of pulling yourself out of the pose when you do that. But when you bend your knees, it should lengthen the back and it should enable you to get your hands lower on your back. Yeah. And then when your hands are lower on your back, then you can have them more comfortably there. Then go up, back up to shoulder stand after having done that. If you want to do an Ekapada, which brings one foot down and the other foot down, you can. Okay. And then after you're finished with your shoulder stand, then everyone can go into that. They'll really stay there for a couple of minutes. We have 4 minutes left in class. Okay, so you can either come into legs up the wall pose if you want a little bit more inversion work, or you can come right into your Shavasana, or you could kind of do a little bit of both. You could swing around and do a couple minutes of legs up the wall pose and then a couple of minutes of Shavasana. You could sneak in a Jatara Parivartanasana, which is also in the sequence before you go into any of those.
I feel like we're rushing. Yes. It's nothing is set, you can't. You're not in it long enough. It's just,
Looks good, Leanne. I just have been, not just, but I've been really impressed at the level of stability and improvement that's come in my own standing poses, but also from doing this work, but also I can really see that there's more, I guess I would just say fluidity. That's quite obvious in your own standing poses. And so these sequences are very much strength building sequences. I found them to be very mentally stabilizing as well. And so we're going to continue on for a while with looking at this classic text of Iyengar Yoga, Light and Yoga. It was written, published 55 years ago now. Same age as me, same age as the Super Bowl. But to me, it's really fascinating because, you know, the Iyengar Yoga is an ongoing living tradition, even without, you know, neither Gita Iyengar or Mr. Iyengar are living, but there are these legacy of the texts that people continue to come together to learn and to study and use them to guide their yoga practice. And I just feel incredibly fortunate to be part of that lineage of teaching and learning. And particularly, you know, during this pandemic time, I mean, not just in terms of what the yoga practice does for you, but what a gift to be yoga practitioners and be able to continue to come together in this time of pandemic, and the separation and the interruption, right, to practice that comes from confronting the first of those obstacles, which is disease. But through our practice, through this technology of Zoom, we're able to continue to come together, to learn, to study, to practice yoga, and to be in community with each other. So let that nourish you and inform you as you go about your work in the world. Place your hands on your rib cage. If you're at the wall, push yourself away from the wall and turn onto your right side. If you are in Shavasana, turn onto your right side. And then sit up straight and tall. Hold your palms together at your heart and close your eyes. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga. In gratitude to the people you have the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with. And in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, as practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India and down through a line of teachers and students to you, here on the mat in Austin, Texas, Paris, France, wherever you happen to be in the world, through this miracle of Zoom. Namaste.